In this interview, Owen Jones, he exposes and destroys BBC's hypocrisy in just one sitting, in just a matter of few minutes. Take a listen what he is saying here.
Yes. So when it comes to the official enemies, then they will have no problem in talking about human rights violations, often to justify military intervention. But if it's our allies, then they will airbrush those, often even far worse, human rights abuses. You know, Israel obviously is a striking example, but then you look at the horrors unleashed by the Saudi-led coalition in Yemen. You know, these are horrors and injustices which aren't talked about because it's those are our allies, and what matters is building up a case against the official enemies.
Yeah.
And I just think that's the problem, is the for so long the mainstream media actually has, it's not like there isn't good reporting out there, including in some of these newspapers, but overall that's the systemic problem with it. And actually the problem, there are so many problems with social media, but equally a lot of what we actually know about, for example, in terms of Gaza, is because of social media. It's because Palestinian journalists have used social media, to get across the horrors being unleashed by the Israeli state. It's this, perversely, IDF soldiers posting their war crimes on TikTok, but a lot of those wouldn't have been reported by our media outlets. So it's no surprise that actually, if you look at the US, the moral panic about TikTok was often about younger people getting access to information about what was actually happening to the Palestinian people, which they weren't getting from cable news. And a lot of older people who are far more sympathetic to Israel were just being fed basically a line which was very sympathetic to Israeli narratives, uncritical and unchallenging of it, whereas people could actually see the horrors and the atrocities being inflicted and the hatred and the genocidal rhetoric of Israeli leaders and officials, which made clear from the start what they were going to do, which most media outlets simply just ignored and didn't frame their coverage around. So I just think, there are courageous journalists out there, but it's hard. It's a systemic problem.
Yes.
And that's that's the issue with the media. It's a systemic. You always have to look at this as a systemic issue.
So what is a systemic issue, Owen? Is it to do with?
So the Western media in the past, they had this prejudice, they had bias for some obvious reason. Could be that because they follow the same religion as the oppressor or the aggressors, or it could be that they have financial interest. Maybe the country itself was in a friendly relationship with the country that is committing genocide or violating laws and human rights and dignities and all that. So there could be a reason why these journalists, they were biased, and they could justify it. They could come out and say, well, I'm sorry, but this is my people, this is my country, this is my interest, and if we are supporting this particular aggression of another country, it is because of mutual interest. It is because at the end of the day, I have to survive. For example, Saudi Arabia committing war crimes anywhere in the world, the Western media will always find an excuse for that, because Saudi has oil. So they could say, well, without Saudi oil, we can do nothing, right? So I have really no choice but to support and talk on behalf of Saudi Arabia, or at least keep quiet, at least try to set a narrative that will be a lot harsher against the aggressors. But today, it is pure evil. Today's situation, the biases, the prejudice that the Western media, MSM, have is purely not based on mutual interest or my survival, your survival, survival of the fittest. It is based on pure evil. There is one point where you have to just draw a line and say, anybody crosses that line, I don't care who is that person, I'm going to go against him. I'm going to speak up against this oppression, against this genocide. There has to be a line. There has to be a red line. But that red line is being eliminated by the Western media, by the MSM. Today, they see those pictures, images coming from Gaza, how children's heads are being blown up. Still they support this genocide. Still they talk for Israel. It is not just because they have interest in Israel, because whether they follow the same religion or they are very good friend for a long time historically, but it is because for some reason they love to be sadistic. They love to see those children's heads, limbs getting blown up. And this is coming because of that pure evil nature that humanity has tipped into, unfortunately, today.
Who's financing media and who is, financing, I guess, for what intention?
Yes, who runs the media? I mean, who
does run the media?
Well, these are just wealthy business people. I mean, it's very straightforward. I mean, very very wealthy business people with a political agenda. If you're a wealthy businessman, you tend to like things like low taxes on rich people. You don't like trade unions. Rupert Murdoch went to war famously with Wapping against print workers. So they see themselves as an employer-employee relationship that has an impact. They like ideologies which make people like them better off. I mean, it's just very straightforward. It's not even a grand conspiracy.
No.
And I just, so I think that's the problem. You get media outlets which, rather than being about standing up to power, they're run by the powerful.
Yeah.
And it's expensive to run newspapers. They're often loss making. I mean, that's the thing. Media moguls will run them at a loss because they know they get other advantages, which is promoting an political agenda, which is to their benefit.
Right. Well, and it's GB News, I think, that's running at a huge loss.
Yeah.
But of course, the function of GB News perhaps isn't so much information and commercial benefit as it is the propagation of a certain outlook.
It's a political project.
It is a political project. It is a propaganda war. It is all about PR. It is anything but humanity. So a good example of that would be, as I was saying, that today's journalist, especially the one who is presenting the news or debating with the experts, the commentators, could be Piers Morgan could be a good example, who himself now believes. So as I said, like, these things are now being done by the media based on pure evil. Piers Morgan, a few days ago in an interview, he said that killing women and children is not immoral. Why he's saying that is because evil is being embedded in him to the point where he doesn't really see any problem killing women and children, whether it's a war situation or any situation, even though regardless of what it is, you should never touch women and children, let alone killing them. You should not be harming them, the elderly people. See how that changed for Piers Morgan? There are a lot of Piers Morgan. There are hundreds and thousands of Piers Morgan in the Western countries who feel the same way, that killing women, children, harming innocent is okay. And unfortunately, a lot of people, they believe in that today. They're being brainwashed. But at the same time, you also have people like Tucker Carlson, very few of them, unfortunately, who are waking up and calling it out for what it is, calling this immoral. Killing women and children is never acceptable. But he's going to be shut up very, very soon. And Piers Morgan is going to get more and more clout for his views, for his evil views. And he's going to make more and more money. And people like Tucker Carlson, or I'm not saying Tucker Carlson is a good guy, but at least he says something that makes sense, that killing women and children is immoral. That's what he said. But you will hear a lot of these pro-Zionist, even the Zionists themselves, popping up from really nowhere, justifying genocide. And we already know there are reports that Israel has set aside $250 million for their image improval. Like, they want to spend money in order to run a successful PR campaign. That's what they're doing. $250 million being set aside. And I have seen a noticeable number of rabbis, pro-Zionists. These are so-called rabbis, but they're pro-Zionists. They're Zionists themselves. Their channel is making headlines. They're getting videos viral, and millions of, thousands and millions of people are watching their videos. But guess what? People like myself, my YouTube channel gets censored at the same time. I was banned for a week. Now my channel doesn't get recommendation by YouTube. They did the shadow banned my channel. People leaving comments getting disappeared. And so this is where it is coming, that evil is going to be propagated and accepted. When you stand up for righteousness or justice or equality or against genocidal maniacs, you will be shut down. You will be shut down. And Owen Jones and Dr. Myriam François, if you do not know her, the lady who is interviewing Owen Jones, her name is Myriam François, doctor. She is a pro-Palestinian activist. May God bless her. So the people like them will get shut down very soon.
It's a political project, and it felt, what it will do is, obviously, it's the issues it selects, the angle it puts on them.
Yeah.
I mean, it is astonishing because people said before GB News, when Andrew Neil was pushing it, he's the former BBC flagship TV presenter and the former chairman of Spectator, which has always been a very hard right magazine, which has published hideous stuff. Not least about Muslims and other minorities. It just shows what's possible, what is permissible and what isn't in this country.
Right.
But him and others would say, well, it won't be like Fox News. We have a different broadcasting regulation system, and it is just like Fox News, and it's just astonishing. And even occasionally, when Ofcom, the TV regulator, actually, it's largely toothless, gives them occasional slaps on the wrist. But that's the problem. Media outlets have long been allowed to just be political projects in the service of a rich media mode.
Absolutely. And unfortunately, nobody's there to counter them, because this media, who is now a political project in so many countries, is getting their voices heard and being promoted, protected, and not being censored. But channel like mine will be censored and banned.